Just give it a try.
What kind of job are you looking for?
It looks easy, but actually it needs thought and creativity. Aircraft maintenance is highly specialized.
Achieve your dreams. Fly High, Youth Employment and Training Program of the Labor Department.
Only PCCW HKT's Ultimate Speed unleashes the power of handsets. Ultimate Palm Service helps identify the handset that best fits your hand. Presenting the new Samsung Galaxy Note 3, the ultimate creation. Call 288-0008 now.
This is something I call the health halo.
Are foods sold to us as healthy actually making us fat?
This Pret No Bread sandwich has more calories than this Big Mac.
If you live on organic chocolate, organic ice cream, and organic oven chips, you will get fat.
Thursday, The Men Who Made Us Fat. The last episode at 8:30 on Pearl.
The time now is 11:41. The time check was brought to you by Chopin.
Calls to ban Filipino domestic helpers over Manila hostage crisis, as the Philippine president is accused of belittling Hong Kong. And is she going to be the first female central banker in the US? Good evening. People Power legislators today suggested that the SAR government should impose a ban on Filipino domestic helpers. They hope the proposed ban will pressure the Philippine government into giving an apology and compensation to survivors and families of victims of the Manila tour bus hostage tragedy 3 years ago. But foreign domestic helper agencies are against the suggestion, saying it might affect local families in the long run. Andrew Lau reports.
The controversy continued today over the Philippines government's refusal to give an official apology for its handling of the 2010 Manila tour bus hostage crisis. People Power urged the SAR government to force the Philippine government to compensate the victims and families of the deceased by not issuing any more work visas to Filipino domestic helpers. People Power legislator Albert Chan said the immigration ordinance auzes the Director of Immigration to impose a ban without going through the process of amending the law. But another lawmaker, Yip Kwok Him of the Democratic Alliance for the Betterment and Progress of Hong Kong, has reservations about the proposal. He said his party would discuss this at length because the ban would seriously affect Hong Kong families and might not be the most appropriate way to deal with the matter. What does the public think?
I don't think so it's fair enough for us Filipinos because we need more job. We need job, of course, to earn money.
If Taiwan can impose a ban on the Philippines, why can't we? I think we can easily find substitutes, this woman says. According to Immigration Department figures over the past 3 years, the number of newly recruited foreign domestic helpers has been on an upward trend, and Filipino domestic helpers account for about half of them. Kevin Wong from Technic Employment Service Center said a ban on Filipino domestic helpers may affect local families because it's not easy to find substitutes these days, as supply from Indonesia has been shrinking. Meanwhile, Secretary for Security Lai Tong Kwok said the government will consider the proposal carefully, but currently he doesn't think there are sufficient grounds for such a ban. Andrew Lau, TVB News.
Legislators are asking why details of a meeting between Chief Executive Leung Ching-ying and Philippine President Benigno Aquino have not been made public sooner than was the case. And one lawmaker today accused Aquino of belittling Hong Kong. Jenny Lam has that story.
This exchange between the chief executive and the president of the Philippines in Bali on Monday angered legislators. The government has not divulged whether they talked about the apology and compensation for the families of the victims of the Manila hostage killing.
Our CE in meeting the president of the Philippines, he was squeezed in a chair with two other officials, like small children. In releasing information, is there any mistake in terms of assessing when is it suitable to release information?
The Philippine president clearly did not take Hong Kong that seriously and appeared to be belittling Hong Kong in view of his repeated public remarks that he would not apologize on behalf of the former policemen who murdered Hong Kong citizens. I think there is no further point in pursuing an apology for him.
She urges LegCo to approve a fund to help the victims' families. The New People's Party is calling on Filipino domestic helpers in Hong Kong not to vote for Aquino in the next election. The meeting in Bali appeared to have complicated matters.
Actually, before the 3 years anniversary of the tragedy, I can tell you that we have planned to go to Manila once and to another occasion to meet the Philippine government official. However, because of the uncertainty of any meeting with the Philippine government official, we have decided not to go at that point of time.
Che Chi-hung, whose brother was shot dead in the Philippines, said if the chief executive cannot represent them at the diplomatic level, maybe Beijing can. He wants the chief executive to ask Beijing to intervene. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
Janet Yellen, the vice chair of the U.S. Federal Reserve, will be nominated by President Barack Obama as the head of the powerful central bank later today. If the appointment is confirmed by the U.S. Senate, it will be the first time a woman has led a major central bank anywhere in the world. James Aiken has more.
Janet Yellen is currently the number 2 person in charge at the world's most influential central bank and is considered a close ally of outgoing Fed Chair Ben Bernanke. It's widely expected that Yellen would continue along the path of the Fed policy charted by her current boss. Yellen emerged as a top candidate after Obama's former economic advisor, Lawrence Summers, withdrew from consideration amid rising opposition. The 67-year-old Yellen has been a strong supporter of major bond purchases to keep interest rates at record lows in order to stimulate U.S. economic growth. Yellen's resume includes extensive research in monetary policy, as well as teaching at the University of California at Berkeley. Besides becoming the first woman to head the Federal Reserve, Yellen would also be the first Democrat to lead the Fed since Paul Volcker was chosen in 1979. But her nomination could face resistance in Congress, where critics argue that low interest rates are stoking the risk of high inflation and could even lead to more bubbles in stocks or real estate. Nonetheless, Yellen is expected to gather enough votes in the Democrat-controlled Senate to secure the position.
Already this week,
Obama's pick of Yellen comes ahead of what many suspect will be a major transition for the Fed. If the economy shows continued signs of improvement, the Federal Reserve is expected to ease its stimulus program by cutting back on the purchases of the Treasury and mortgage bonds that have been helping to keep a lid on loan rates. After serving for 8 years, Ben Bernanke will step down as chairman of the U.S. Central Bank at the end of January. James Aiken, TVB News.
It was the same gripe but a different day over negotiations to end the U.S. government shutdown and raise the debt limit. President Barack Obama and House Speaker John Boehner continued to play the blame game. Here's Sonia Artero.
Today marks day 9 of a partial government shutdown in the U.S. That spells a dismal status quo for hundreds of thousands who remain out of work with no benefits or medical treatment. A few hours after calling House Speaker John Boehner, President Obama ramped up his rhetoric of faulting Republicans for refusing to negotiate unless they can derail Obamacare.
I also told him that having such a conversation, talks, negotiations, shouldn't require hanging the threats of a government shutdown or economic chaos over the heads of the American people.
But the Speaker of the House said Republicans won't budge unless the president agrees to discuss how to steer the government to live within its means.
The idea that we should continue to spend money that we don't have and give the bill to our kids and our grandkids would be wrong.
Boehner also said it's scary dealing with a president who's setting a dangerous precedent.
Listen, there's never been a president in our history that did not negotiate over the debt limit. Never. Not once.
Instead of printing more money, Republicans insist they're begging Obama to help them make the government more debt responsible.
As bad as government shutdown and debt ceiling risks may be, they are relatively inconsequential compared to the economic devastation resulting from an American bankruptcy.
But with the Tea Party pulling the Republican strings, this political strategist warns Wall Street to prepare for the worst.
Wall Street and the big banks are the villains for a lot of the Tea Party crowds.
As if teetering on a catastrophic debt default wasn't enough of a national outrage, the shutdown means all U.S. military killed in action are being denied death benefits that their families are supposed to be guaranteed. Sonia Artero, TVB News.
A court in Shandong province will hear the appeal of ousted Chongqing party boss Bo Xilai. He was jailed for life after being found guilty of bribery, embezzlement, and abuse of power. But there's no word yet on when the Shandong Higher People's Court will hear the appeal. Bo's trial was held in the Jinan Intermediate People's Court in Shandong last month. Back locally now, lawmakers say military land is underutilized, and part of the land at the Gun Club Hill Barracks has even been converted into a private club. They've urged the government to consider taking back some of the plots, but the Secretary for Security insists there is no military land being left idle. Jenny Lam reports.
There are 19 plots of land meant for military purposes around Hong Kong. Legislators pointed out today that 5 of those, including the barracks in Kowloon East, Sekong and Tai O, have a low utilisation rate. They want the government to look into the possibility of taking back some of the land, saying the police force is well established to maintain law and order, and the People's Liberation Army only has a supplementary role in this respect.
Whether the authorities will raise with the Central People's Government the turning over to the SAR government without compensation those military sites left idle for a long time with low utilisation rates and suitable for public use.
Secretary for Security Lai Tung-kwok stressed there is no direct relationship between for what purpose the land is used and how often it is used. He said under the Basic Law, military forces stationed in the SAR is for defence purposes. The police and the military, he added, are not the same. The legislators then ask why part of the land at Gun Club Hill Barracks is being used as a private club.
Now there are people buying membership and then they use the facilities and this place is self-financing. I don't see how there's any defense purposes.
The Security Secretary explained that the arrangement was agreed upon by Britain and China back in 1994.
In fact, the size and number of military sites held by the Hong Kong garrison are far smaller and fewer than those held by the former British forces stationed in Hong Kong before the reunification.
The total amount of military land now, he said, is actually about 42% less than before Hong Kong came under Chinese rule again. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
Lawmakers today rejected the use of special legislative powers to investigate conflict of interest allegations facing Secretary for Development Paul Chan. Kwok Ka-ki of the Civic Party tabled a motion to invoke special legislative powers to look into the controversy involving the land owned by Chan's family in the Northeast New Territories. Chief Secretary for Administration Carrie Lam dismissed suggestions Chan would be able to use his power to influence the development project there. The development chief did offer another apology while denying any wrongdoing. Outgoing Hospital Authority Chairman Anthony Wu says more medical professionals will be needed to help Hong Kong cope with its future demographic challenges. Vicky Kung reports.
With the end of his career as Hospital Authority Chairman in sight, Anthony Wu took a break today to reflect on his time there. Wu shared with journalist the